Hello and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. It's been a little bit of an absence on my part as I've sort of wandered around Europe, Warsaw and Milan, which was a lot of fun, I must admit, but I'm glad to be back. I look forward to hosting the Banking CEO of the Year for 2014, National Bank CEO Munir Ahmed at Mindspeak on May the 17th. Of course, Mindspeak is held at the Intercontinental. That's this Saturday. We serve breakfast from 9:30 and we start at 10. We've had some tremendous guests this year, including Christine Lagarde, Dr. Naikuni, Charles Ireland, Dr. Richard Sassi-Behra. And I'm looking forward to that tremendously. I'm going to put up a photograph of myself and Mr. Confuorti, who is the convener and the president of Advantage Financial, the convener of the conference that I attended on Monday in Milan. He's quite a magnetic personality, kind of irresistible. And I'm a deep believer in serendipity and the power of pull. And I certainly like being in the company of folks who can bend serendipity at a personal level. Mr. Confuorti is one of those individuals. Home thoughts, I'm going to put up a photograph of the sunset over Amsterdam yesterday as we took off on a Kenya Airways flight on my way back to Nairobi. And then I'll also put up a photograph of dawn very early in the morning at 20,000 feet as we were descending to land in Nairobi. We had some excellent food at the Four Seasons in Milan, and I'll put up a photograph of the dessert tray, which was rather fancy, and another photograph of what I called seafood ecstasy, which was in a restaurant around the corner from the Four Seasons, and that was delicious as well. It was a pleasure meeting John Hooper of The Economist and Andrea Cabrini of CNBC. They were mediators they were moderators as I was at that function on Monday. Of course, here in Kenya, all the excitement has been around the Chinese Premier's visit and what is going to be the biggest project in Kenya's post-colonial history. I gave some comments to Radio France International. That audio is also on Rich Wrap-Ups. I wrote the piece on 12th of May about how China should invest in Kenya's bonds and equity markets, and I also participated in a CNTV look at China in Africa. They were asking whether the Chinese are being neo-colonial, whether that charge is a fair one. It's a very long clip, but I couldn't even find myself in it, but I am in it somewhere. Political reflections, the dynasty per se is finished. It will be a long, slow death, but it is incredibly difficult to see them recover from here, said Ramachandra Guha, an Indian political historian and commentator. And I think he's completely right. I'll put up a photograph of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty. And obviously Narendra Modi is winning this. All ends up as I said he would. Pro-Russian separatists ambushed Ukrainian troops on Tuesday, killing 7 in the heaviest loss of life for government forces in a single clash since Kiev sent soldiers to put down a rebellion in the country's east. And so that remains volatile. And this is the comment from Pepe Escobar. It's just a matter of waiting for the NATO junta to go broke and frozen to death, he says. The New Yorker, quoting Mother Jones, says this is what a holy shit moment for global warming looks like. This is the breaking of the ice up in the Arctic, and I'll put up a photograph of that. Currency markets, Euro 137.18, and hasn't Mario Draghi done a good job of dragging the euro down? Dollar index just above 80 at 80.03, but the dollar bounce is entirely because of the euro being wrestled lower by Draghi. Japanese yen 102.14, Swiss franc 0.8890, the pound 168.60. Touched 169.96 on May 6th, which was the highest since April 15. India rupee is at 59.43. My target is 57.50. The South Korean won trading at 10.2675, touched 10.20.97 on May 9, a level unseen since August 2008. And there is a lot of speculation that the authorities in fact intervened to wrestle the won lower. Brazilian real 221.46, Egyptian pounds been slipping of late 705.51, South African rand 1029.54. This is a fresh 2014 high. The euro slipped 1.1% in the past week and is the worst performer after the Swiss franc. The yen rose 0.2%, dollar advanced 0.5%, and the pound lost 0.1%. The Aussie has been a very strong feature, with a 1.4% advance, touched 0.9409, which was the highest since April 15. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the euro dollar, 137.18, and Draghi has evidently persuaded the market of his intentions next month. Dollar index at 80.03, but the rally has been largely driven by this sort of euro sell-off. Gold, I'm going to put up a 1-year chart, 1295.45, doesn't trade with any conviction. It has rallied 7.6% this year, but you would have thought it would be much higher given the events that we're watching, geopolitical event risk. But I think it speaks to how poorly and how negative gold really is underlying. Crude oil, 102.05, that's toppish in my view. Gained $1.11 yesterday to close at 101.70, now trading higher. This is the highest level since April 24. Prices are up 3.7% this year. I, for one, think that it's actually that it's overcooked up here, and it's a sell. And in fact, the more I think about it, I think 2 years down the road we're going to be considerably lower than where we are now. A 100-carat Graf yellow diamond ring sold for 14.5 million Swiss francs last night at Sotheby's. I'll put up a photograph of this vivid yellow diamond. And I was speaking to Marco Annunziato, who's the chief economist at GE, and we were speaking about how the real ultra expensive stuff keeps getting more expensive, and it's quite an interesting development. Indian Bombay Sensex, I'm going to put up a 1-year chart. We're in record territory here. We're probably going higher. I'll put up a 1-year chart of the India Rupee, last at 59.43. I'm looking for 57.50. I believe it's going to be a conclusive win for Narendra Modi. Sub-Saharan Africa, interesting piece by the Overseas Development Institute in the UK about the development implications of the fracking revolution. If Chinese shale gas production increases as predicted, African countries that provide its current supply could suffer greatly. Angola and the Republic of Congo would incur the greatest losses, an estimated 13% drop in national earnings from energy exports. Guinea and Sudan could lose as much as 5%, in Yemen 4%, according to the study. Africa experienced similar decreases when the US took to fracking. In the 5 to 10 years it took the US to develop its infrastructure, African exporters lost $1.5 billion in gas and $32 billion in oil revenues. Shale oil exports to the US from OPEC's African members Angola, Algeria, and Nigeria fell to the lowest in decades from 2011-2012, dropping 41%, largely because of the US fracking revolution. In May 2013, Nigerian Oil Minister Dizani Alison Madueke called US shale oil a grave concern. African OPEC countries produce oil of a similar grade to shale oil and therefore suffer some of the worst economic effects as a result of North America's fracking boom. Countries like Yemen, Mozambique, Ghana, Congo, Trinidad and Tobago, and Mauritania could also experience losses, and we've got to keep that in mind. particularly as we found all this tremendous oil and gas on the eastern seaboard of Africa. The South African all shares, just shy of a record, is up 7.87% this year. Dollar Rand is at a 2014 high. The Rand is at a 2014 high. I'll put up a 6-month chart, last trading at 10.2954. South Africa's Rand extended gains to a 2014 high of 10.2725 on Tuesday, breaking through a 1030 technical level after positive credit rating opinion from Moody's in the wake of last week's election. And I wrote about this when I visited South Africa, and I wrote about it on the 7th of April when I said the Rand appears to have snapped a more than 12-month downtrend, and that is a constructive forward indicator. Egyptian pound, that's been slipping a little, 7.0551. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Kamal Umar, who was a foreign minister for 2 years immediately after the revolution happened. Very interesting insights he gave me, and a very interesting individual. The Egyptian stock market is up 24.24% and has had a storming run and is Africa's best performing index this year. The Nigerian all shares down 2.69% in 2014. Nigeria is now signaling readiness to talk to Boko Haram rebels. The window of negotiation is still open, said the Minister of Special Duties, Tanimu Turaki. Jonathan returned to Abuja on Tuesday from the Congo Republic, where he held talks with President Denis Sassou ahead of a regional summit in Paris on Saturday. He asked Parliament on Tuesday for a 6-month extension of a state of emergency in the northeastern states of Adamawa, Borno and Yobe due to persistent attacks by Boko Haram. The emergency was declared last May and extended in November. Yobe State Governor Ibrahim Gaidam rejected the proposal on the grounds that local people had suffered under the emergency, and this harmed the government's counter-insurgency strategy. If they knew where they were, I certainly would send in US troops to rescue them. In a New York minute I would, without permission of the host country. This is Senator John McCain on Tuesday. I wouldn't be waiting for some kind of permission from some guy named Goodluck Jonathan, he declared. The Ghana Stock Exchange is now up only 4.43% in 2014, but you've been simply crushed on the FX. Ghana's cedi has slipped 23% against the dollar this year. And there's an interesting story saying that because of the currency differential, there's a lot of smuggling going on out of Ghana. It's down 23% this year, and it was down a similar amount last year. Ghana focusing on homegrown strategy to tackle fiscal crisis. This is what the president is saying. That what we are concentrating on is the preparation of a homegrown strategy of fiscal consolidation. It is our expectation that both our domestic and international partners will join us in the implementation of this strategy. I'm not so sure they will. I wrote about this on the 28th of April 2014 when I said policymakers are getting crunched in places like Ghana, rising fiscal imbalances, regions Achilles' heel. And I said a more than 30% collapse in the currency is a direct cause and effect of poor policy making, and that putting Humpty Dumpty together again is not going to be an easy thing. Atlas Mara Co-Invest Limited, this is the investment firm backed by Bob Diamond, disclosed plans for a share sale that would raise about $400 million for further acquisitions. The company will sell 36.5 million shares for $11 a piece to investors, Atlas Mara said in a statement. And obviously they're targeting Africa, a region where a third of the economies are expanding at more than 6% according to the World Bank. Atlas Mara agreed to buy Bank ABC, which offers financial services in Botswana, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia and Zimbabwe, and said it will use the company as a springboard for further acquisitions. Coming to Kenya, Kenya may reschedule payment of of $600 million syndicated loan. This is a report on Business Week. Discussions with commercial banks about repaying the debt that matures this month, Treasury Secretary Henry Redtich said. They had previously said in the 2013-2014 budget that they would settle the syndicated loan with the proceeds from a proposed Eurobond, an offering that has been repeatedly delayed since September. The government says it's prevented by law from issuing sovereign debt until it pays two court awards made in Geneva in 2012 and London last year, totaling $16 million that must be approved by Parliament. And clearly Parliament is obstructing that payment. The problem with that, Parliament have a point, is that, the Attorney General, the Kenyan government did not defend its situation or its position in any meaningful manner, and it's a very murky situation there. So I'm afraid we could see further delays in that Eurobond, and then on top of that we might have a bit of a road wreck in the mining sector, to keep you aware of that. The Nairobi Securities Exchange is set to sell up to a 38% stake in an initial public offering by the end of next month. This is Peter Mwangi. He said that yesterday. And they announced a 15.4% drop in net profit for the year ended December 2013 on the back of low sales, apparently. TransCentury is set to book a billion shilling loss this financial year from its recent divestiture from Rift Valley Railways. They revealed in their latest report, earned 3.78 billion shillings in March from the sale of its 34% stake in RVR to Citadel Capital. But they've already pre-warned us about this with a profits warning that came out not too long ago. The Kenyan shilling continues to ease, last trading at 87.252, might go lower, especially because of the Eurobond issue. The Nairobi All Shares up 11.43066% this year, just off a record high. The NSE 20 remains below 5,000, but is up 0.92875% this year. There is a link on the website for any share you can to have a look at. And I'm going to resume my commentary on the NSE from this evening. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it, and it's certainly good to be back.